I'm faster. I'm cheap and my name is XRP. I'm faster, I'm more secure than you'll ever be. I'm faster, I'm cheap and my name is XRP. Wow, cross. On point. Hello everyone, let's get started. I don't have no financial interests. I know that's wrong grammar, but I say it anyway like that. And I don't have no sponsored links on my videos. However, I will put after the live stream some links about stuff I will be showing now. Can you see me? I cannot see myself. 3 topics. High value or large payments, buy, sell walls and slippage. Rather quickly. And the reason why I want to talk about high value payments is because I posted that tweet. Can you hear me, by the way? Can you give me a thumbs up? Because I cannot have all screens open at this resolution. So I'm really hoping you can hear me and that it's all fine. Can you hear me? Cuckoos. We can see you. Hear me? Talking. We can hear you. All good. Okay. The reason why I want to quickly talk about high value payments is a tweet I made where in that tweet it had a table with some figures. There was like a very conservative figure, what I think is a large payment or high value payment, as we mostly call it, like 50 million, and then like an average transaction size on the exchanges in terms of XRP, 50,000. I mean, which basically would mean that XRP would need to go to $1,000. Okay, we can argue if that logic is correct. And then on the bottom I had 3 scenarios. One, I think it was like weekly 1% increase, $1 increase. One was, I think, daily $1 increase, and one was weekly $50 increase. And I got an answer from Simon, the guy I quite respect, from the Telegram group Love for Crypto. He has been investigating and doing research on Ripple and the whole industry as such, payments and whatever is connected for many years. And I think he knows quite a lot. But he answered on the tweet of mine that he doesn't think there will be large payments anymore in the future. And his argument was that the large payments today are kind of batched payments. And I got a bit worried. Could I really not see that it's really like that? And so I woke up today in the morning and I started doing research. And those of you who follow me longer, and even those who do not do that, I recommend watching the video target 2 analysis I made about a year ago. There I analyzed the figures I found about target 2, the European payment system. And today in the morning I did a little more research and I found figures from the Canadian payment system. That's the figures you can actually see now on the screen. And I also found rather similar figures, smaller in terms of volume, but rather similar in terms of size, about the Australian real-time gross settlement system. And I then had further I presented my view to Simon on Twitter, and he basically answered that the batching wouldn't be necessary anymore once the payment cost, the transaction costs are cheap. However, he also said, seeing my figures, that the transaction cost on these local rails, target 2, Canadian payment network and Australian network, are low. So why then do we see figures here which are really the high figures? I mean, that if he was right, Simon, that as soon as cost per transaction goes down, there is no need for high value transactions anymore, because you can kind of debatch it, not put it into one batch anymore. That would basically be reflected in statistic about these local rails. But I could prove in target 2, I can now prove with those figures you're seeing right now from the Canadian system and in the Australian system, it's rather similar figures. So T1 is the large payments, T2 is the other payments, okay? And so that's the total that's the total of the large payments in a total year, just the amount. And that's the total of the other payments about a whole year. So you can see it's about factor 100, okay, between this and this. Also between this and this figure, it's about factor 100 difference. Now when we scroll down to the total values, that's for the large payments, the total value per year, and that's the total value for all the other payments. Now these two figures below, is that not possible? Hold on. This 3,593,000. That's the average of the non-large payment. This 120 million is the average of the large payment. So if Simon was right, there wouldn't be a need to actually have such large payments anymore. Yet we do in target 2, I repeat, in Canadian system and in Australian system, which leads me even more to believe there are such large payments. Okay? Now, if we think he's right and these were really batched payments, and we would split 100 million payment into smaller payment, let's say into 4 million payments, then we have 4 million times 25. Can you see? That's 100. That would be 100 million payments. In another video I showed that all SWIFT volume would increase, like the total SWIFT volume would increase TPS maybe 100 transactions per second. So we were like, When we're now in the between 30 and 50, we would thereafter be at 100% Swift volume at around 150 transactions per second. Now, if we broke down all those larger ones into smaller pieces, like 4 millions, or even smaller, we would have like 25 times transactions more, which even those broken down large value payments wouldn't be capable to be transacted on the system, on XRP, because XRP, as you hopefully all know, has highest transactions at 1500. Okay? Okay, so that's about it. That's kind of roughly, for me, proof that indeed high value payments do exist. I mean, basically, Simon answered in a way which, in my opinion, contradicted himself. But maybe I'm again wrong, even though I don't think so. But maybe someone of you is in the love for crypto and will tell him that, and he might come back to me. I really don't want to go into that. Now about the buy and sell walls. I made a video today. Please watch that video. I think it explains with that particular chart pretty nicely how the buy and sell walls will work. Just a rough summary. On the ask orders, where someone wants to sell, we have a buy wall at 5. Well, actually here I should change the figure. That would be, because I changed for the second part, I changed it. But it's not really important in that respect. So we have a sell wall about 1000 whatever XRP or so on the ask order side. Now everyone who wants to sell less than 1000 needs to go below that price, otherwise he will not be able to sell. If I want to sell more, I can put that, actually even if I want to sell more, I have to go below. Well, no, actually let me restart that again. So we have to start the explanation from another perspective. So the sell wall, everyone who wants to sell less than that amount of the sell wall has to put the price below so that it's executed. So it puts downward pressure on the price. The only way someone could buy more at a higher price is when he buys more than well, actually this figure also isn't correct anymore. That's now 5000, and that was not calculated, that was manual entry. Hold on. So basically only someone who would buy more than the 6000 here could actually kind of go over that sell wall. And that's really important to understand. And the same happens on the buy side on the bid side with the buy wall, only there we have an up pressure on price. If you want to buy like less than the sell wall, then you need to offer a higher price, so it's up pressure. And if those two exist, the sell wall at 5 and the buy wall at 3, so sellers will go lower at 4 and buyers will go higher also at 4, which basically means they will meet in the middle and the trade will be made at 4, the current price. Okay, so that's about that. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is the slippage. And basically there is two slippages according to Galgitron. I mean, it's actually a fact. It's not just according to him. One is the consumption slippage. In that example here on the right hand side, let's assume I need to transact $600. So I would need to execute the first 3 trades. And then I have like 300 of my asset. That in our case it would be XRP. And the total value would be 600. If the price on the receiving exchange didn't change in the meantime, he would still have a price at 1. So the 300 whatever XRP he would sell at 1 would only give him a return of 300. So the slippage loss would be 300. And this can go pretty steep, this slippage loss, okay? But we all know Shane Ellis said the price on the exchanges will be synchronized rather quickly. And who says that Ripple didn't say, like, how do I say that? Didn't put up the system in a way that they will initiate such payments on 2 exchanges at the very same time. Which basically means on the receiving side the same thing would happen, so the price there would also be around 3, and then there wouldn't be any slippage loss, any consumption slippage loss at all. Now then there is the second slippage, that's the volatility slippage. And volatility slippage actually arises through the fact that you may initiate an ODL transaction and it gives you a rate of $1, and during the time you need to finish the transaction, the price rises or drops of XRP, which basically means there is either a loss or a gain on the receiving side. But because ODL guarantees that you can transfer the amount you want to transfer, there will be a difference depending on the new price on the receiving exchange. And this will be handled by the slippage pools. That was a very intelligent question from Richard at Swell. I don't know if the guy should have told us that these slippage pools exist, but he did, and it makes total sense. And thinking about the fact that some trades will make a profit, where Ripple can like only sell, like let's say 98% of the XRP on the receiving side if the price rose on the receiving side, because then you don't need to sell 100%, then the remaining 2% of XRP will go into that slippage pool. And if the price dropped and there would be less fiat available by selling than the appropriate amount of XRP, they will top it up from that slippage pool. So that's the 2 important, or the 3 important things. High value payments, I have literally still no clue. They do not, let me rephrase. I still do not have any doubts. That's the proper wording. I do not have any doubts they exist. There might be batched payments, but I'm assuming that the batched payments are like when I send my family somewhere $50 or $100 or so. That simply doesn't make sense via Swift. So they will batch that together to, I don't know, $50,000 batches or so. But those high value payments, I literally cannot see with all the evidence I have that they're batched. And if it were like that, hi Raf by the way, and if it were like that, then basically XRP would anyway not be the right coin because he couldn't even handle the transaction volume. Then the second thing I was talking about is this buy and sell walls. Watch that video I did in the morning because there I explain it slowly, very easily to understand. And the third thing is I talked about today was slippage, that there are two kinds of slippages: consumption slippage, which arises from the fact that when the receiving side price of XRP does not rise in parallel, I need on the sending side to increase the price and receive at the million, but if I send that over, that amount of XRP will maybe only be 500,000, so the recipient will not receive enough XRP in order to sell. That's consumption slippage. And then there is the volatility slippage, and this is actually not a problem at all. I actually was thinking, I didn't think that to the end yet, but I thought if that Jane Ellis theory really will happen, I could imagine very well that when Ripple should or will be aware of the fact that this could happen, that it could happen or that it will happen, maybe even like that, then I could actually imagine that on those first transactions they initiate, that they do not just cover the volatility slippage, but also the consumption slippage. Done deal. Ripple has so many XRP, for them it would be freaking easy to do that. Pending the fact after that first transaction really the price rose on all exchanges. So that's it from my side. As today is ad hoc, we won't make an hour, maybe 25 minutes more. If there is questions, I will go through. I see you can hear and see me. I hope it's still the case, even though I have a warning on YouTube. Is it like broken, the video or something, or the sound? Connection keeps cutting out. Let me stop. Now it tells me excellent connection. I hope it's better now. Frozen. Looping the last few sentences. Keep having to reload. Fuck. Sabine's fault. Whose fault? Who's Sabine? I'm really sorry for those connection issues. The thing is, I tried a few times at the lower streaming rate, 700 and like this lower value, 720p, but the same thing happened, so I don't think it's actually connected to the connection. The connection could well be on YouTube side. That at the same time when I'm doing live streams, others are doing I really don't know. Again frozen, but now it says excellent connection. Frozen for me. No data. Excellent connection. So I'm really hoping now you can hear me better. But my own preview is also pretty weird. There I don't move at all. So if you keep telling me that it's bad, well, I did restart the whole stream rough, like 2 times already. Still no here. Now I move on my own preview. Now it a little bit delayed, but I think now it's okay. 2. Yes, that was my 2 from as I just started again back. So, okay, I will anyway summarize again quickly. High value payments will happen, 0 doubt about that. Watch the video about buy and sell walls where I pretty slowly and cleanly explain what buy and sell walls are and how they work together to keep the price balanced. And then slippage, there is 2 sorts of slippages. Consumption slippage, when I need to execute several ask orders in order to come to the total amount of value I need to transfer. The price will be higher than before. If that higher price is not synchronized to the receiving side exchange, they will not be able to sell at the high price. They will still be only able to sell at the lower price, which will affect which will have the effect that the recipient will receive less money than what I have sent, and that cannot happen. And the volatility slippage is price differences during the ODL transaction, which can happen, and slippage pools from Ripple will cover that, and because those trades, the loss and the gain will balance out, it's kind of fine. I could even imagine that those slippage pools help for 5 minutes or so when the system kind of really started to cover the consumption slippage. I mean, Ripple has so many XRP, it would literally be a no-brainer for them. So, and I also said that today we will not make an hour. We had like 5 minutes of broken stream now, so maybe about 20 more minutes. Any questions? And look at the description of the video thereafter. I will put links to the Australian and the Canadian payment network statistics. Yeah. Hi Mickey. Chatan, you're late. And the topics I spoke about I've already covered. And I'm now listening to you. But it doesn't look like there are too many questions. Actually, my last 2 German and English live streams, I had that very same feeling already. People, when the price rises, people have less questions. Where are we now with the price? It was above 28 today in the morning. Are you with me? I mean, if there is no questions coming, we can also stop the stream right after 30 minutes. And those who missed when I was explaining all those things about high value payments, buy and sell walls, please go and watch the first 18 minutes again. D-Boy, well, it's a little bit the chicken and an egg problem. According to Galgitron, ODL won't rise price because there is basically a net increase in demand for XRP because you buy XRP, but on the other side you sell, so the net is kind of 0. That, according to Galgitron, that levels out. But if Galgitron is correct, then the only price rise we will see will be from speculation, and that will bring us, as we have seen in the past 2 years, exactly nowhere. And building liquidity, I mean, what Ripple is definitely doing is working with market makers, and I stated it about 14 or 16 months ago, I think more, maybe 17 months ago already. I think it was September 2018 or so. I made a video where I talked about market making, and the ideal market making companies for large payments, like 50 million payments and stuff, would be the CLS banks. And unfortunately, at that time, 17 months back, I didn't see a reply from a guy. I saw that when I, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, went back to that very tweet, because I was looking for when I had that hunch. I saw that a guy replied to me at that time, and that guy seems to be working in foreign exchange or somehow, and he answered in that reply to my tweet, to my hunch, that in foreign exchange it is exactly the way I explained it, that the CLS banks are doing the market making. And we also know that Miguel Villas, in that very famous video where he talked with those guys from Ethereum something, he basically said as soon as XRP kind of would be listed on those Nasdaq whatever trading desks, we know it will have the same liquidity as FX, which would basically mean it's super liquid, and that's the target for Miguel Villas. And when that's the target, and that guy tells me for FX it's the CLS banks doing the market making, I have literally no doubt in believing Miguel Villas is talking to those guys at those CLS banks. I mean, after all, it's those guys who make a lot of money from the float, but now with Swift GPI, when everything has coming down, they're not doing so much money on the float anymore. So why not offering them a way to make huge returns on market making? I mean, sounds kind of reasonable to me. Is that kind of answering your question, D-Boy? So, I mean, liquidity building directly is not possible, but for sure they're talking with the proper institutions who can play the market making role. David C. No, he didn't say that he expects 100-fold increase over lifetime. He explicitly said, if I say that, people get me wrong, and he actually made 100-fold increase already, because he started at 0.3 cents investing. But he very clearly stated he has no clue. And actually Bob Way in that video also stated very clearly that even him working at Ripple, he had no clue what this market team around Miguel Villas is working on, which basically proves the fact that even though you know XRP, like the technology and everything, down to like the last needle pin required, you might not have any clue on what kind of, I don't know, value Miguel Villas is working on. I literally have no clue. Exactly, Spyros. RippleNet is FX version 2. Well, George Giorgio, yes and no. George Giorgio is thinking that Ripple is focusing other things as well. Well, not quite. I really believe they have laser sharp focus on cross-border payments. But when we talk about liquidity basically means that whatever amount of that asset you want, you can buy at any moment in time, be it 0.005 pieces of whatever you want to buy, or be it 500 million. There will be someone who will be willing to sell you that amount. That's liquidity. And all those other things, coil and cinnamon, and that's kind of creating the liquidity on the lower level. But there also needs to be liquidity on the higher level. But when you mean by cross-border payments the remittances, then I fully agree with you, George Torture. Many people believe that Ripple is just after the remittances but not after the high value payments, which is simply an outright lie. Even though that was my first thought to not go as well, because the whole agenda was basically about those remittances and low value payments. But you can rest assured that Ripple met, I think Swell began, I don't know, on Thursday around 11 or so, 10 or 11. And you can be sure the important meetings have taken place before, or maybe even on Wednesday. And this actually is also support. I know some people see that in a different way, that the hall where those sessions were held, where like the first two sessions were packed full, like no empty seat. And after lunch it was like 2/3 were gone. And don't tell me they were like doing networking, because there was enough pauses in between to do networking. I mean, and interestingly it was, I mean, at least that's how I felt, it was the tie and suit wearing guys who were not there anymore after lunch, and neither on Friday actually. And why? Because what they wanted from Swell they had on Wednesday and Thursday morning, and then they just left. No more business. I mean, a guy who wants to transact 200 or whatever, 50 million payments a day is not really interested in how Instaream handles his $2,000 payment to Jamaica. I'm sorry if I heard some figures. Raf, could be that they're waiting for more countries, but I don't think so. In that respect, D-Boy was actually quite correct. But it's not that Ripple builds liquidity, but Brad Garlinghouse stated it over and over again. Liquidity begets liquidity. So you rise liquidity and there will be automatically demand for it, which will increase the liquidity also, because the market will kind of like grow. And I'm pretty sure that we will, I mean, from those, I don't know, 1,000 banks on RippleNet, I know you ask now, 1,000 banks. Well, I mean, you can be sure that from like really the top shot guys, we will know nothing that they're on RippleNet. But a million payments per day, in my opinion, says enough that the big shots are already on RippleNet. And why? I mean, they do not just want to save 30%, they want to save 60% on their current cost. Discouraged? I'm totally not discouraged. I'm freaking bullish as hell. as hell. George, if you refer to remittances, then I fully not agree. The vision of Ripple is internet of value and not internet of low value. They're targeting everything, and believe me, they will succeed in that. I've never met. There is little. Ripple does make some mistakes communication wise. I mean, at least, okay, I mean, we're not target audience. I don't know how they communicate with their customers. That I have no clue about. What we receive regarding information sometimes is, I think, not transparent enough or outright flawed in the way it's written. Even in some charts and PDFs I've seen, there were like mistakes. No one seems to care about that. Why? Because we're the guys who are looking at those PDFs are not their target audience. And the funny thing is, no one even realizes it. As a matter of fact, I think some people try to point me out mistakes in those PDFs as being the truth. Anyway, coming back to that full launch, rough. I don't think so. I think a few important corridors or currencies should be enough in order to be able to maintain a high value. And as soon as the value is high, like banks from all, I mean, Ripple has customers all around the world, and they will join that system. At what price of XRP will I stop YouTube? I literally have no clue, Paolo. Maybe at some point in time I will do some pause. Well, actually, basically, I would owe it to you to continue until 4 digits. But maybe I stop at high double digits already. I literally have no clue. But what I could think of is changing the subject once we're all rich. What that other subject might be, I don't know yet. XRP is not the new Swiss franc, definitely not. But I asked Bitrex Global if they intend to introduce a Swiss franc pair soon, because they are now listed in Liechtenstein, and the official currency of Liechtenstein is the Swiss franc as well. IMF? How is IMF involved in debt? I literally cannot see that. From what I learned about 10 days ago is actually the fact that countries are in debt with their banks and not with other countries, which would also explain why like 90% of the world countries are in debt. Because if a country would be in debt with another country, then the net debt would be zero, but it's totally not zero. It's like trillions or even more, not zero. And I couldn't explain that to me, and then I read a nice paper about, which was actually a PhD thesis from a guy who was writing when Switzerland voted about Vollgeldinitiative about, I think it's about 5 years ago or so, maybe 6 or even more, I don't remember. Anyway, this initiative where we could vote yes or no if we want or not, was about like the fact that we would basically stop fractional reserve banking the way it's being handled today, and that from if we had accepted that new law, that from then on only the central bank could issue money and not retail banks anymore. But it was not accepted. But I recently found an article anyway talking about that fact. I don't even remember what I was researching for. I think I was just researching fractional reserve banking, and somehow I found that article, and in that article he actually, but I think it's in, I don't remember if it was in, I think it was in English even, and I made a tweet about it, so you might find it in my media on Twitter. It's about 10-14 days back or so. And in that article he pretty clearly explained how fractional reserve banking works, and he didn't say it's bad in general. He basically said if we continue like that, it'll be a problem. And that I can agree, but up to now I think we wouldn't be where we are today. And coming back, what was the question actually? Now I've lost my thread a little bit. About this debt from IMF and debt, and he also explained how a country has debt, and basically they do have debt with the banks. And that's the reason why I'm asking, how can IMF cancel debt for countries? Maybe it's debt where those countries received money from the SDR. That could be, but that will not make those countries debt free. That will just remove the debt they should need to repay for the SDR they received. Well, R-star Swiss franc is for long not linked to euro anymore. I think we're almost, an euro is only very little more worth than a Swiss franc. Mickey, maybe you can explain that to me on Telegram a little bit more, what you mean about XRPL, DEX and Polysign. Maybe it's not quite the right place right now. Jack, I have, I don't know, almost 100% XRP. I have a few hundred, I think, or 1,000. I think 4,000 solo. I don't know, but it's like, I don't know how many solo I have, but it's like, I think less than 1% of my total investment. Who will suffer from XRP success? I literally don't see any. Well, the guys who made the CLS banks, who made a profit on the float, but this float is now with Swift GPI anyway almost gone already. Everyone wants, they need to look for new markets. But Jans, well, I still think Shane Ellis may happen. I mean, that's my belief, but I'm most likely the only person in the whole XOP community who thinks that it will happen. I mean, everything tells me it will happen because every other theory failed so far. So that leaves, okay, one could argue Shane Ellis said November 2018 is deadline, but maybe he didn't see some implications his theory would bring, which brought the delay. But if you're not looking at that one fail of the Shane Ellis theory, to me it's still the most. I mean, every other. If Galvatron says there is a freaking monkey jumping up and down and leaving and rising the price, I mean, we will be in 10 years below $100. That just won't cut the cake. Thanks, Mickey. Looking forward to it. Yes, Arthur, that could be. I mean, once we have a high price, whatever, I think everything, I don't know, above, let's say, I don't know, $10 or $20, I literally don't see the price dropping below that anymore. Because the volume of, I mean, even though higher volume will not bring higher price, but it will sustain the price through ODL, and it'll be, and the higher the price, the higher the volume, and it'll be kind of, I repeat it again, ODL is like a nuclear reactor. It takes you years to build it and to start it. But once it's started, it's kind of almost impossible to stop it. I mean, you can stop it, but it's a hell of a lot of work and leaves a lot of crap stuff behind. Great River. Ripple has literally no intention to hold back corridors or push down price. They would be happy if the price went higher on its own. But literally I have strong reason to believe that the price was manipulated in the past 2 years. I mean, look at the volatility we had in February. And like the past 18 months, it was like straight on like that, and then we had certain jumps up or drops down, and after the drops, like 5 or 10 minutes later, it was like steady again. And now in February it goes like up and down, like 2% up and 3% down. In 2 minutes later, it's like crazy. Don't tell me in the last 18 months the price wasn't manipulated. I don't believe that. F Castle, it's not impossible. It's very likely possible, I believe. Thank you, Robert. TIFF is can I not talk about it? I don't want to have that really bad energy around me. Makes me angry. She's an asshole. I tweeted an egoistic, self-centric person who is looking for I don't know how it's called in English, for like the quick win or something, like just an asshole. That's all what I will say about her. However, maybe what I can say about that thing she brought up about the validators. I tweeted to David Schwartz. I mean, this UNL list is. I did a research today about this UNL list. What it actually is, and I don't know how. Like the proposed, the default UNL list, I think has around 36 validators or so, somewhere around that. And this is basically the validators you're listening to, and if you agree with those, then the whole network can progress, because let's say 20% of those you listen to 80% other validators, and like that. The idea is that all validators together in kind of like a meshed network listen to each other and trust each other. That's the basic idea. There is not one UNL list. Each validator should and most likely does have its own UNL list. The default one is just a proposal to use. But the idea is that you should change it and listen to other validators. And my question to David was, can one figure out to which other validators a particular validator is actually listening? I didn't receive an answer yet, and maybe I won't, but I don't think that this is possible. Otherwise, they would have done so. And the other, like, then there was two other things that she basically stated, that there is too few validators or only validators like paid by Ripple, even though they are not run by Ripple, which are like in the UNL list. But again, anyone can change that UNL list. It's just the default, and I think it's not even recommended to use that over a long time. So that's also crap. And on the other hand, the validators list, it just shows IP addresses. Okay, some have URLs like the domain name, but even those domain names, I could have a domain name ripple.b.com or something, and you, with no luck, you would have no clue that it's me or who is running that validator. And the third point she was bickering about is the fact that the XRP could be changed. Like, she mentioned the fact that more XRP could be created. And theoretically that's correct. XRP is software, and as long as 80% of the validators agree on an amendment is a change on the algorithm of the XRP logic within 2 weeks, then the amendment is basically accepted, and this way they can introduce bug fixes or further enhancements, like the fact that you now can delete accounts which you couldn't do before. I think now you can send the full amount of XRP away, and then the account is deleted, or you can, with that transaction, tell it somehow to delete it afterwards, which makes sense, because before all those 20 XRP were like laying around and you couldn't do anything with them anymore. And in forum posts, I think, around June 2017, David Schwartz said that that's just an example I kind of dug up when Manuel was a bit concerned about the fact that when XRP would hit 10k, that micropayments wouldn't work anymore, because a drop would be a cent and like how could you pay a tenth of a cent for 30 seconds of video if the transaction cost of that tenth of a cent is already a cent? That doesn't make sense. If you pay 10 times more transaction fees than you actually pay for the stuff you want to buy. And in that blog or in that post he did on a forum in the middle of 2017, he stated that an amendment could be that drops the decimals after the point could be increased from 6 to 9 or 12. I think maximum would be 15. IOUs can or do have 15 decimals after the point. And that's possible. But coming back to the fact that you basically proposed that there could be more XRP created. Why would you do that? That's so plain stupid. Basically, if that were done, banks would leave the train. They would like jump board. Like the moment that was known, they would not use it anymore. XRP would drop to 0. What sense does it make to have 10 trillion XRP if you issued those newly XRP to yourself if they don't have any value anymore? It's literally useless. I mean, so why would someone do that? And I think David Schwartz and the team around him, they're intelligent enough to have checked all those risks. Plain C, no, IMF cannot say how much XRP is worth. It's really just something which can happen on the market. And I explained that in tweets that there cannot be any fixed value, because with fixed value comes regulation, and XRP cannot have a fixed value. I still believe in 4 digits, actually 5. Actually rough, maybe you win, but we will win both. I mean, one person I'm following on Twitter is or used to tweet very confusing tweets, like information about the XRP. And I was in contact with that person. Then for, I don't know, 2-3 months I didn't see any tweet from that person anymore. And all of a sudden I saw tweets of that person again. And then I DM'd her, the person, and got an answer back which was very enlightening. Maybe, I mean, pretty sure 5 figures, definitely not this year. But that person issued very confident that we will reach 5 digits, and faster than what I think, 25, 26. Stuart Ross, no, the validators cannot vote to burn Ripple's escrow. Well, actually yes and no. What they would need to vote for is to create an amendment which would make it possible to burn escrow, but to create an algorithmic logic which would only target Ripple escrow would be kind of almost impossible. And as you know, everyone can create escrow, and I don't want my escrow to be burned. But what they could do very easily is the same as XLM did. You can, Stuart, if, like, just an example, you have 10,000 XRP. You send me one XRP and burn 9,999 as transaction fee, and all your XRP are gone. Geo, well, I mean, that's what I've been saying all along. I think the potential for 4 digits this year is totally there. I mean, if you have like 1 million transactions, not ODL, just X current, like Sylvia Nostros on RippleNet, and that will grow. That will grow exponentially. It has been growing exponentially, and I talked about that in earlier live streams already. In October, in the interview with Pompliano, he said quarter over quarter it doubled the volume. That would mean in a year it could maximum be 8 times higher. Not a month later as well, he said in the October 2019 they had as many transactions as in total year 2018. So that's way more than the proposed doubling every quarter. And the reason for that is, I can tell you, is RippleNet Home. Because that's something most people don't know. Even though you're on RippleNet, you cannot just start transacting with Bank X. Unless you did transact with her before over Swift. But once you never did transact with her, you need to do a due diligence process. You need to make sure that you can trust that bank. And RippleNet Home very, very, very much makes that process of doing that due diligence way more easy. And that's why we see that explosion in transactions. So guys, we're after a little bit slow start. There was quite some interesting questions. I really hope you enjoyed the Ad-Hoc live stream today. I was kind of in a mood. Let's hope it stays so that I'm in a mood. People breathe. Raf always says it, breathe. It's really not worth doing any research. Look once a day or once a week at XRP price and leave it. Those who care quite good about the ecosystem. And all those speculations about who is connected, and I mean, as long as it doesn't affect price, it's just hype, and it makes you nervous, it makes you stressed, and you lose energy, and energy you might better be using for your family, for your kids, for your wife. So breathe. Just forget about doing all research. We don't need to know everything. I stopped doing research, like deep and long research, after I kind of created the superhighway theory. That was when I knew what's going on. For me it was kind of clear. Ripple will be the global solution over time. So, one last question, and while I wait, I want to thank you everyone for your persistence, for your trust, for your confidence, for your interesting questions, that you don't shout, that you don't ask when moon and stuff. I think we still have mature chats, and that's really the way I like it. I really hope people check those figures on the links I will be posting in about an hour or so on the video. check those figures. Do not just blindly trust me. Look at them and if you don't understand, come back and ask. It's not that my opinion is correct. I think it is, but I need to be challenged. Regarding eating healthy, today we had Zürich Schnetzlets. It was the first time for my wife. She made something with champignon this week, and I told her, that's rather similar to Zürich Schnetzlet. And I proposed to do Zürich Schnetzlets today, which I did. And it was really delicious. Okay, when XRP flip Bitcoin, I have no clue about when. Other question, please. Otherwise I will say goodbye. Is there another question? XRP Ledger have a dusting attack. What, please, is that? You mean a phishing attack? Well, there have been two sorts of attacks. One was that obviously people started trying to attach large amounts of data in the memo field, like files and stuff, but I didn't follow up on that. Maybe they even kind of stopped that part. I have no clue. And recently I read that some people receive minor amount, like drops of XRP with a memo attached, and then if you click, they kind of grab your password or whatever. I really don't know. So whenever you receive XRP and the memo in there is fishy, just don't click anything. Okay, no question. In that way, maybe we see us next Tuesday. Have a nice rest of the Sunday. I will go to bed soon. Take care.